Hitler?
Good guy.
Good guy. Do you believe that that's what caused this cancer?
There is no scientific or medical evidence to support that.
They destroyed my property and I get stuck with the bill. Until I reached out to you, no one was listening.
Trust Duane Pohlman. Local 12 investigates.
As the country watched in horror while white supremacists marched and violence erupted in Charlottesville, Matthew Heimbach, a white separatist who once called Cincinnati home,
they're the ones that tried to kill us,
stood in Charlottesville, laying blame for the carnage on the left.
Do you have any accountability for this death at all?
Not at all. These radical leftists are the ones that brought violence.
In a Skype interview with me, Heimbach went further, claiming Charlottesville was a success for the radical right.
This was a stunning victory for us. We achieved all of our objectives.
Heimbach, a 26-year-old college graduate who grew up in Maryland, is part of a growing whites-only movement led by millennials. He founded and continues to lead the Traditionalist Worker Party and its outreach arm, the Traditionalist Youth Network. Both were once headquartered here in the tri-state and are listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as hate groups. Heimbach disagrees. It's not a hate group.
Right.
You don't hate anybody.
Nope, it's a love group.
Is Matthew Heimbach a racist?
Absolutely. Matthew Heimbach is in no uncertain terms a racist.
Do you consider yourself a racist?
When I don't run from the term.
Months ago, I caught up with Heimbach at a park in his new hometown of Paoli, Indiana, where he made his worldview very clear. Hitler?
Good guy.
Good guy.
Good guy.
His goal? Establish a whites-only state. So you set aside areas for people based on race.
Yeah, to be able to opt out of the system.
While he lived in Cincinnati, Heimbach disrupted press conferences and led rallies, including a protest of the 4th of July beating of a white man by African Americans at Government Square. You're still involved in Cincinnati.
Yep, we actually have an active party chapter in Cincinnati.
Heimbach's groups make up a growing number of radical organizations on the right and left that now dot the tri-state. The Southern Poverty Law Center lists 84 hate groups in Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. That's 9% of the listed hate groups in the U.S.
Without a doubt, in the last 2 years, we've seen it firmly take root. We've seen these ideas firmly take root in the mainstream.
Last year, Heimbach was caught on camera at a Trump campaign rally in Louisville on Super Tuesday. That's him in the red cap, pushing that African-American woman who was protesting. Not a great picture.
Not a great one.
We both agree. Heimbach says he was reacting to an elderly person being pushed by protesters. Are you proud of that moment?
I have no regrets about it.
You were seen pushing, and you were seen yelling. It was reported that the word N was used?
Nope. And if you watch the video, which you can on YouTube, I use the term leftist scum.
It's the same sentiment Heimbach is now uttering about the counter-protesters in Charlottesville. In public,
The left were the ones that were bringing violence.
and in that Skype interview with me. Did you commit violence?
Of course we didn't commit violence. Anything that happened was self-defense.
And that includes, Heimbach says, that moment when James Fields Jr. allegedly plowed into a crowd of counter-protesters.
And if his vehicle was attacked and he feared for his life, that is an entirely separate situation.
Fields grew up in Florence and, according to his teacher, at a young age began expressing views similar to Heimbach.
It was very clear he loved Hitler and he loved the Nazi movement.
Despite the death and violence in Charlottesville, Heimbach says he and other leaders on the white far right are ready for more. Has this emboldened or has it caused pause for the members? What happened in Charlottesville?
Absolutely moving forward.
Heimbach insists he isn't backing down, that he and other extremists are organized and mobilized, and he says they're growing stronger every day. Road debris is puncturing our sense of security.
I didn't know if it was a gunshot or what, because it was like, pow.
36-year-old Wesley Hall, who owns several restaurants in Cincinnati, was shocked 2 years ago when things didn't stack up. An object slammed into his car on I-75.
Wow, the windshield just shatters.
Quick reaction saved him and his mother.
When it happens to you, I hope you can react the way I did.
The debris listed in the accident report was not what he expected.
And it was actually ice, shield of ice that slid off the trailer.
At ODOT's Hamilton County garage, highway tech Tom Friel meets me. Hey, Tom.
Hi.
Appreciate it. Thanks for taking time. Taking me inside these massive dumpsters, revealing heavy objects ODOT crews are hauling off our highways. Holy cow. From refrigerators that were dropped on I-75.
That was in the high-speed lane at the 10-mile marker.
How much does that weigh?
This is about 75 pounds.
To entire trailers. You hit something like this?
Right, and it's something bad's gonna happen.
And these big hunks of sharp metal.
What on earth are these? I'm not sure what it is, but I know it's dangerous.
Even this. An entire set of massive forks that should be on the front of a forklift.
It came bouncing down the highway.
On I-75 near Norwood.
This is something that you know is going to hurt somebody.
Debris on Ohio's roads does hurt lots of people. According to ODOT, from 2012 to 2016, falling or flying debris on Ohio's roads caused 5,571 crashes with 140 serious injuries. Hamilton County is third highest in the state for road debris crashes with 341. But how is all this debris ending up on our roads? After all, Ohio has this law that requires loads to be secured or covered.
The law says you have to have these loads secured and you have to have them covered with a tarp.
Out here, we quickly spot loads that appear to be neither secure or covered. From packed pickups and trailers in tow, we found items stuffed, jammed, flapping, or just hanging precariously out the back. This driver, who wouldn't tell us his name, insisted his load was secure.
It ain't going nowhere.
Even as he repositioned a shovel that was hanging off the back. While mufflers can drop
all the time. All the time.
And tires do fall off, this thing's a projectile bouncing down the highway.
Yes.
Or, as we witnessed, shred, sending chunks of that tire flying into our window. Most debris can be prevented from becoming a flying or falling hazard on our roads.
He's got a ladder in the back of his vehicle. All he's got to do is just hit a good bump and it'll fly out.
You have to have it tied down and covered so that it can't escape your vehicle. That's it. It's pretty simple.
In Cincinnati, a police cruiser crashes into a car. The city denies the claim for damages. The owner, Bobby Burgess, has to absorb a financial hit of more than $12,000.
I get stuck with the bill.
In Dayton, no warning when a police cruiser hits Donna Siege crossing a street in her wheelchair. Dayton denies Siege's claim, leaving her to deal with medical bills totaling more than $250,000.
The policeman hit me, and it was not my fault.
The cities don't have to pay because they're protected by this Ohio law that grants cities immunity when city vehicles are responding to an emergency call and there's no willful or wanton misconduct. And as our investigation revealed, court decisions have extended that immunity to non-emergency calls.
It's my opinion that virtually these cases can no longer be won.
It's just, I get so frustrated and it's like, are you kidding me?
State Representative Catherine Ingram of Cincinnati isn't just frustrated by what we uncovered. She intends to fix what she calls the flaws in our law. Is the law in Ohio flawed?
Very.
My first hope would be that the law gets changed so what happened to me won't happen to anybody else.
Bobby Burgess stepped up, agreeing to testify at the Ohio State House about this crash. That's a Cincinnati police cruiser spinning out of control and slamming into Bobby's car. It was a total loss.
State law allowed Cincinnati to completely avoid paying out anything.
Bobby, who was featured in our Local 12 investigation, described to state representatives seated on the House Civil Justice Committee his disappointment and financial hardship when the city of Cincinnati refused to pay more than $12,000 in damages, writing, "This Ohio law means cities are immune from liability."
It was only when Local 12 investigative reporter Duane Pohlman heard my story that I began to get any kind of traction.
Whatever the changes, lots of lawmakers agree. For Bobby and others, this law has had an impact, and that needs to change.
Whether it's a police vehicle or another vehicle, and it's not a life-threatening emergency, and they're just driving down the street and they run into your car, I think most people would say they should pay for the damages.
There are a lot of steps before this bill becomes law, and most say there will be changes along the way. Of course, we'll be following up every step of the way.
All along this fence, all along there.
Every spring and summer,
all this grass back in here.
For 11 years.
Back over by those steam lines, of course.
John Vickery's main job at the city of Hamilton,
everything on this side of the road,
was to kill weeds and grass here at the now closed Hamilton City Power Plant.
We used to spray all over this area.
And the product he used?
We used Roundup.
The Hamilton Public Works Director tells me Roundup is no longer used, though he says he doesn't know why the city switched. In the spring of 2006, John was no longer out here battling weeds. He was in here at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center fighting cancer.
When they said you had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, what was your reaction?
Shock, disbelief.
Surgeons removed 2/3 of John's right lung, and he retired much earlier than he had planned.
The type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma I got is incurable, and basically they're just waiting for it to come back.
John moved to Florida, but couldn't stop looking back.
And I wondered if it might be exposure to anything at work, but I didn't know.
Then 2 years ago, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, published this 92-page document concluding the main ingredient in Roundup, glyphosate, is, quote, probably carcinogenic to humans, and it found a positive association for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Does the main ingredient in Roundup cause cancer?
No, Duane, it doesn't.
A vice president of Monsanto, the maker of Roundup, sat down with me in St. Louis, vigorously defending Roundup and disagreeing with IARC's conclusion.
And Duane, this is not a study. This is an opinion piece.
I reached out to IARC 3 times. The agency has yet to respond. John and dozens of other cancer victims and their families are now plaintiffs in this lawsuit filed in St. Louis against Monsanto, claiming Roundup caused their non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
I do believe it did, yes.
In the suit, John's attorney states John's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a direct and proximate result of using Roundup. How many John Vickerys are out there?
There are so many John Vickerys out there. There are thousands of John Vickerys out there.
Robin Greenwald, a former federal environmental prosecutor, spoke to me from her office in New York. How sure are you that Roundup is that dangerous?
I mean, I am quite sure that Roundup is dangerous to human health and the environment.
Partridge says IARC is too quick to make a cancer connection.
Of the products they have examined in their years of existence, they have found every single one, other than one, to be associated with cancer in one form or another.
Indeed, the IARC list does include things like red meat, listed just like glyphosate as a probable carcinogen, and alcohol, which is listed as a known carcinogen. While John Vickery believes there is a link.
Do you believe that?
Yes, I do.
The question about a cancer connection to Roundup will likely be decided in court, where a lucrative brand and a powerful corporation as well as science itself, would all be on trial.